I'm Holly Tarquini. As most of you know, I'm the director of FilmBath and the founder of the F Rating. And this session is going to be all about Eventive and setting up Eventive to host your film festival. We'll look at lots of the advantages of Eventive and what it can do. We will walk you through lots of how you set up your film festival and how we did it. And we'll look at some of the pitfalls as well. The reason that we're doing this is because back in May, I pulled together Cambridge Film Festival, Cine City in Brighton, Cornwall Film Festival, and our organisation FilmBath to put together AMPLIFY, which was an online film festival in November. We screened 38 features, 62 shorts, 19 of the features were UK premieres. We had 11 industry events, 46 film introductions, 15 Q&As, and of course, 55% of the features were directed by women. So we had quite an experience of setting up a virtual film festival, as I know lots of you have had. And I'm joined this morning by Richard Nelson, so Richard managed kind of the whole look of Eventive and getting the images on there, the text on there, the trailers, all collating all that information like certificates, directors. He's going to be talking about that. And he also managed the audiences. So he fielded all the messages coming in from the audiences about issues that they were having. So he will be able to talk about that. And he also helped unknot the financial reporting. So he'll talk a bit about that. Also here is Alastair Goolden. Alastair is FilmBath's technical manager. And Alastair, he managed getting all the films onto the platform, the features and the shorts and the introductions, and also the integration of the Q&As. So he will be talking about that. I've put into the chat the kind of topics that we're going to cover. We'll mostly stick to that. As we're going along, I'm sure you will have lots of questions. If you can just note the questions down so that we can come to all of the questions at the end, that would be brilliant. So first of all, we're going to start with Richard. And Richard, I'm going to ask you to screen share your Eventive so that everybody can see the back end of it, and just quickly walk us through, if you can, quickly, the whole kind of setting up, how it all looks, back end of Eventive.
Sure. So let's share the right window. So you should now be seeing the back end of Eventive. So event buckets are sort of what your festival is. So we'll create a new one just for the sake of this. So these are the sort of initial settings. So the name obviously would be is what the public would see as the name of your festival, and then the domain would be where they reach it, FilmBath 2, because I think there is already a filmbath.eventive.org. A lot of these settings are the kind of things you would change if you need to. I won't go through them all one by one because they're quite sort of nitty gritty about how it works. The main thing here is down here, which is the configurator, which dictates how the festival appears to the public. So Eventive has quite a lot of different settings that you can customize. At the end of the day, every Eventive site sort of looks like an Eventive site. If you really want a bespoke site that looks exactly how you want it to look, you kind of need your own site, which then can link through to Eventive. But there's still a certain degree of flexibility, so as that you can make it look how you want. Why it's not showing the site, I'm not sure. So you can put in images, so you can put your logo, obviously the display name, it doesn't carry through always. So you might think that FilmBath example up here would carry through. It doesn't. So you can give it a slightly different name if you want, for whatever reason. And you can change the colors, obviously.
Sorry, what do you mean it doesn't necessarily carry you through?
So, for example, you know, I've given the event a name up here, which is FilmBath example. Okay, that's interesting. It's lost all of that.
Do you want to go to the Eventive one where it's got stuff, because then you could.
Okay, no, am I still screen sharing? Can you still see this? Okay, I've fixed it. I forgot. One handy thing to remember to do is click save. And if something's not working, try saving it. This is today's main lesson. So now that I've saved it, you can see some of the stuff I've been putting in has come up as. So this is in. You can't. My pointing is useless. So this is what the website would look like to the public in this on the right here. So you can change the name, obviously, so it doesn't have to match up to what your festival is called if you wanted it not to. And you can drop in logos. I'm afraid I don't have any to hand. And if you want to use different terms, things like schedules or passes, that's all editable. We'll leave them as they are because I think they're quite clear. And then, you know, so this is the level of editing you can do, really. You can't do much more than basic colors. And that's, so there's, as you can see, there's multiple things. Oh, that's quit me. So the general just does the colors and the logos. Welcome includes, again, more imagery you can edit. These buttons here, you can add additional buttons if you have other pages you want to send people to. You can edit the text. Yeah, that's the basic. So yeah, the configurator is all sort of the basic layout of the website rather than anything to do with details on content or whatever.
Richard, can you just very briefly say the difference between, so there's two main views that you can have in Eventive, or that exist in Eventive, aren't there? There's one, so we had, with AMPLIFY, we had quite a kind of, I thought, attractive, dynamic page where Richard had very nicely made some films into banners that you could swipe through. So like the UK previews were all in a banner that you could swipe through. And then some that were smaller down below, and then some larger ones again, so that they had areas. There might not be any content there. And then you can have a page which is your schedule, where you've got all of the films are housed, which again, you can either show using film posters, so they're in a kind of portrait size, or you can show using an image from the film, so they're more like 16:9 kind of sizes. Yeah, so have I explained that, Richard, or is there something more useful to say about that?
Yeah, you sort of get two websites with Eventive, which are sort of connected but separate. So are you seeing now the watch.eventive page?
Yes.
So yeah, so this is the other, obviously because AMPLIFY is finished, there's no content. But the website I was showing before, this one, that's sort of a landing page where you can buy passes or see a list of films. But then when you actually come to watching films, this is sort of what it looks like, except instead of no available content, you have, like Holly was saying, the images and banners. And so those two sites are controlled in slightly different ways. This one you can sort of directly edit. And this is sort of a WYSIWYG kind of editor, you know, as soon as you make a change, you can preview it and then save it. This one requires a bit more effort. You have to use tags. So when you create a film or a virtual event, you can give it tags, and then you can change. So tags have different layouts, the virtual catalog display mode, and what option you select changes how they look here. Yeah, that's you have to have content to be able to sort of demonstrate how that'll look.
Okay, can I ask you to stop screen sharing for a moment, Richard? So I just wanted to say that one of the pitfalls that we fell into was that we paid an additional, I can't remember how much it was, but we paid additional money so that we could have a URL which wasn't Eventive/Amplify Film, but was Amplify Film. And that really tripped us up. So we highly recommend not doing that. I can explain in detail why it tripped us up, but suffice to say, we don't recommend doing that. Stick with the one that you don't have to pay for, and you won't have as many issues as we had with that. Richard, was there anything else that you wanted to say about the initial setting up?
I don't think so. Not specifically about initial setup. No.
So I thought it might be quite useful just to mention there that as well as Eventive, we built a Squarespace website for Amplify. So you saw that briefly when Richard was screen sharing. And happily, we had a brilliant designer on our team who built that and made it work. And we had Richard editing copy and writing copy, and other people in the organization furiously writing copy. But that was in some ways it wasn't confusing to us at all, because we could see that this was our Squarespace Amplify Film website and this was Eventive, where you actually went to watch the films. But it did cause some trip ups for people, because they found it difficult to know where they were, even though it was quite easy for them to click through. But anyway, setting up a Squarespace website is pretty easy. There's a very good template for things like film festivals, which does things like nicely collate things in date order. It does beautiful things that we all want our websites to do, like it once the date of that screening has gone, it puts a cross through it and puts it at the bottom, so it's still there, but it's very obviously no longer live. So that we felt that was a really good resource and was somewhere that we could send people to.
Probably should say at that point, Eventive does have some functionality to embed Eventive stuff within a separate website. I can't remember exactly why we decided not to go down that route.
And so actually so Cornwall Film Festival, that's exactly what they did. They embedded Eventive into their homepage. So as soon as you landed on the Cornwall homepage, you were basically in Eventive and able to browse through the films, book tickets and passes, and go and watch films. Which brings us hopefully very nicely onto tickets and passes. So Richard, what I thought would be useful for you to talk about. So one of the reasons that we chose Eventive was because it's been set up by people that run film festivals. They've really thought about passes and how they work to an extent. The whole site is based on the premise that all you really want to do is buy a pass. So it's with the mentality that a film festival means buying a pass for the film festival or being issued with a pass for the film festival and then just using that pass. And I had supposed before we used it that what it would mean was buying a pass or a ticket and those things being kind of interchangeable. So over to you, Richard.
Yeah, I mean, if you do just want to sell tickets, you don't have to sell passes. Eventive, like Holly said, is built around the idea you will sell passes, but you don't have to. So let's put the screen sharing on again. So within the event bucket, you have pass buckets. And quite simply, to create a new one, you click create new pass bucket. So again, there's a lot of different settings that aren't all that necessary. And the main thing obviously is to give it a name. So you call it a full festival pass for the sake of argument, and a price, which is what people will pay, obviously. You can set the quantity if you only want to sell a limited number. So for example, as you know, if you want to have an early bird price, you could sell 10 early bird tickets and then have unlimited full price ones. And so that's the main thing on the first page, is just the name and the price. So we'll save that. Then they have what are called pass rules. So this is where, for example, you could limit how many tickets you can buy with the pass. So if you want to create a pass for 10 films, you could down here set total number of tickets per pass at 10 and number of tickets per event at 1. So they could buy a total of 10 tickets, 1 ticket per event. You could also make it so the pass gives you a percentage off or amount off. So if you only wanted a pass to give a 10% discount on tickets, that's as simple as that. And you can set it to only work on certain films or tags. So for example, you could create a pass that only worked on, if you had previews or shorts, for example, you could set it, and we haven't set up any tags yet, so I can't do that as a demo, but you know, once you set up tags, you'd have a drop down of all your tags, you could select that, and same with ticket buckets. And there are a lot of different, it's quite flexible. You sometimes, if you want to do something really specific, you have to dig around and maybe work out a couple of different rules to apply, but generally speaking, you can have a pass do whatever you want it to do. For individual tickets, you have to do them event by event. You can't sort of set up a standard ticket that applies to every event. So an event sort of needs 2 things. The first thing is a film, which are under films. So when you create a new film, this is essentially like an IMDb listing, but on your site. So you give it a title and a blurb. Tags, again, you have to select from, you have to set up separately. And then you just, you know, it's all the standard, you can upload posters and images, standard things about run times. This is all just sort of text. You know, whatever you put in the runtime doesn't affect the actual runtime of the content. And quite a useful feature is you can hide this. So if you've got a film that you think might be in the festival but isn't fully booked yet, you can add it to the site, set it to hidden, and then all the information's ready for once the film is confirmed. So we've got an example cool film. So then to actually set up a screening, you go to virtual screenings, create new virtual screening. And there are 3 types of screenings. For now, we'll just stick with video on demand. So you select the film it will be. And then this is where you can set things like when it will be available, what dates it will be available, if you need to restrict which countries it's available in. And then right down the bottom is where you actually set tickets. So you can change the name of virtual admission as the default. You can set the price. You can limit how many you want to sell. If you want to offer a discounted rate, so say your full price is £10, but you want to do concessions at £5, but there's a limited quantity, then you want to sell variants. So we'll call that a concession, spell it correctly. You can add a different type of ticket, but then that gets funny with your numbers. So, you know, if you had 50 of those and then 50 concessions, you would only be able to sell 50 at full price and 50 at half price. You wouldn't be able to sell 100 at full price. So that, not very helpful. So get rid of it. And I think that is the basics of tickets and passes.
That's brilliant, Richard. And what I'd say for the audience, the way that Eventive and passes work is brilliant. So you buy your pass of 10 films, and then it's, as soon as you log into Eventive, which can be slightly problematic for audience members, but as long as you're logged in with the email on which you bought the tickets, it will then allocate those tickets. So it'll effectively unlock a film for nothing up to 10 films if you've got your 10 tickets. Where it's problematic, and I know I said I was going to talk about problematic financial reporting later, but I will just mention that with passes, what happens when you're reconciling everything once your festival is finished, when you're trying to do distributors reports, the ticket passing, the way that Eventive allocates the money from a pass is kind of effectively wrong. So say you bought a pass for £10 and you were given 10 tickets for that, but you only watch 5 films, it'll allocate £2 to each of those films instead of £1. So I believe as a film festival that it should allocate the proportion of the 10. So it should allocate £1 to each of those films that somebody watches, because they've effectively paid £1 per film, and that the £5 should be mine. But actually, I'd be really interested in what Sonali thinks and whether you think that actually that's completely wrong, and as a distributor, you should be given the proportion of that pass, even if people have watched fewer films. Anyway, it is a technicality. Thank you very much for that, Richard. That was brilliant. I would like to invite Alastair in to talk about, so I don't know if you all noticed on the screen that Richard just shared, that there was a button. I'm going to show it to you. Hold on. Am I going to show it to you? No, I'm afraid my Wi-Fi is being hammered too much to show it to you. But there was a button inviting people to upload films. So Alastair, can you talk to us about how you actually get the films, features and shorts on there?
Yes, of course. I'll perhaps share the screen with you so that you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, I think we're in something called example event bucket, which was set up a while ago, but the advantage here is if we go to the films page, you'll see there's a summary there of all the films that have been set up. So we've set up a number of different examples. So let's take a random one, documentary feature number 1. We go to edit film, and we can have a quick look at what we've got. So basically, Richard's already taken you through this. The button that Holly was talking about is here, send upload invites. So that's what the best option, because that means that you don't get involved in the upload process. It's done directly by the distributor, which obviously saves a lot of time and headache on them potentially. But some distributors don't want to do it directly, or it might be that there isn't a distributor and you've got a filmmaker who submitted a file to you directly. So in that case, you use the upload directly button and you can then do it yourself. So you'll have a look, you can just have a quick look here. The main thing to say about this paragraph at the bottom here gives you the recommended file format. Those of you who have experience of other platforms will know this, but this is fairly critical. And on Eventive, it's quite a modest allocation. Basically, they're suggesting an H.264 file at 10 megabits per second, which is quite low bit rate, but it's kind of equates to the standards on YouTube, Vimeo, and that sort of thing. So it's basically online streaming friendly. But of course, a lot of distributors, it is changing now, but our experience was that a lot of the distributors simply don't have a version of the film at that encode rate. You know, they generally have a ProRes file or something a bit more substantial. So that can cause problems. You can't load a ProRes file, upload a ProRes file directly to Eventive. You have to make sure that it's in this format that's described down here. Having said that some distributors can't, actually we didn't have too many problems with AMPLIFY. Most of them were able to supply what we asked for. There were 1 or 2 exceptions, but by and large that was all right. Those of you who've had experience of this will know that it is hugely helpful for the distributor to upload the film directly. Otherwise they have to upload it to you. You then have to download it onto your computer and then upload it onto the Eventive site. It's a time-consuming process, so it's better not to be involved if you can. I'll just talk about 1 or 2 other aspects of content uploading. Once you've done that, once you've done your upload, you then get a you'll see it marked. I'm going to take you to the AMPLIFY site. Am I all right to do that? The backstage site. So let's have a look at AMPLIFY, where there's a lot more stuff. I'm going to look at the list of their films. So basically, all the content for AMPLIFY is loaded into this event bucket, and obviously everything is named. Now this includes, as well as all the features, all the shorts, any introductions. You can see that we've got a number of introductions given by different people, so we would record those and get those uploaded. So basically you've got everything in your pool, and when you come to set up a virtual screening, you just pick the relevant titles from your film list, and Bob's your uncle, or Roberta your auntie. And basically on here you get a summary of the status of the film, so you'll see that these are all streaming ready. So that means that all the content, all the files have been uploaded. As Richard explained to you, the first job is to set up the film itself, which doesn't necessarily mean you've put a film into the server. You've just created a slot for it, a card, if you like, in the card index file. And you can put all the details down there, but you don't have to upload the content until later, which is good, because generally speaking, that happens some way down the line, sometimes a couple of days before the screening. You also have an opportunity here to edit what you've put up. So let's have a look at this one. It's got all the details, it's got the summary, the title, all the particulars that Richard has summarized. Here you get some stills. You've got opportunity to put your stills up there, and then here is a description of the file that has been uploaded, so I can see it's there. It tells you what it is, the name of the file there. Obviously if it's the wrong file, or if they've sent accidentally a file with the wrong language and the subtitles and you don't discover that until a little bit later, then you'll need to remove it and then re-upload the correct file. Also you've got you can either put a URL for the trailer, or you can upload your own trailer and have that available. Obviously there's the potential for watching trailers on the front end of the website. Visibility, all the details you need to go through there. So I don't really need to talk much more about that. The only other thing to mention is, of course, I did refer to this a little earlier, if you want to show more than just the feature. So if you want to tag, put in a little intro at the beginning, and or a short film or a sting or anything like that, that's a lot easier in Eventive than in the other platform that I have had experience of. And it's done basically, if we look at the virtual screenings slot, let's go to one of those, find that one. You'll see, if I scroll down here, what we've got here is the film itself, and then Holly's intro, which we wanted to screen before the film itself. So you can actually just put it's very simple just to put those in there, and that means that you can then have the intro followed by the still by the feature. And if you want to change that, you can delete that and put something. If you want to change it someone else, you can easily do that. So it's pretty handy to be able to make changes and things like that. I don't think there's much more in terms of the content. Holly.
So, that was brilliant, thank you, and especially brilliant to talk through how you set up the playlists, and that was, I think, a real advantage to Eventive, was the ease how easy it was to set up a playlist. So we could have had in there, obviously, so we created stalls before every film to kind of ident them that you're at an AMPLIFY event, and that if there was a Q&A, that either the Q&A was there attached to it or when it was going to happen. And we could have, if we'd wanted to, we could have added a short film. There was a lot of a lot of ways that we could have done things. The other thing that Alastair did was ran the Q&As. So happily, Alastair and I spent the summer, I feel as though we spent the whole summer, learning how to simulcast and run Zoom webinars, which was incredibly handy when it came to Eventive. But Alastair, if you can talk about the integration with Eventive of doing the Q&As live, and then also the Q&As after they've gone live.
Okay, so let's have a look at the live streaming hub. Here are the live streams all set up. So you go about this in exactly the same way as you would for a feature film. You just do it in a slightly different section. So you can set up a live stream session. Let's take an example here, Adventures of a Mathematician, Q&A. So basically you set that up and it's the normal process that you can actually, you get a number of options when you do it. Trying to find where they create new. Here we are. So you just go through it, the same process. We've already looked at this page with Richard. So you click on live stream instead of video on demand. And because in our case, we started our live streams ourselves, so they were kind of manually inserted. So we set up this, we give it a name, we do all the things. Obviously there's the normal range of features that you can you have options on here, and once you've done it, you save it, and it's a part of the hub.
Alastair, just to interrupt you, sorry, did we do VOD plus live? Was that how we set up Q&As, or did you set them up as live streams that were kind of, how did that work with the films that were on there?
I think we did it the latter, as far as I remember. Richard, can you verify that? I don't think we set up a VOD plus live.
No, we did. I think we did both because we had Q&As that were attached to films. Yeah. We did VOD plus live if it was a Q&A attached to a film. And I think standalone events were just because we had
workshops and things.
Yeah, panels and the like.
Yeah. So yes, so yes, if you
they're very similar to set up.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the important thing to say here is that the principle works fine, because basically you get the integration of works. I mean, Richard might be better to talk you through the nuts and bolts of that, but basically it's once you've done one, you're okay to do lots of them. There are a couple of things that you need to be slightly aware of. One is that the start off is always a difficult one, because you're doing it incorporating a Zoom session. So we used Zoom webinars. I think we used webinars. No, maybe we didn't. Maybe we did. Because normally speaking, if you're not using a third party like Eventive on a Q&A session, you want a facility which will allow you to show the video feeds of the speakers, but we don't want any video feeds from the members of the audience. Now, if you use a Zoom meeting, that's a little bit more complicated to arrange. If you use a Zoom webinar, you have your audience in one room effectively and your speakers in the other room. So the only bit that's broadcast is the audio and video feeds from the speakers. But in this case, so yes, we did use webinars, and it's just a little bit, it takes a little bit of time to go live. So once your film is finished, you've got to kind of slightly get on with things, and you need to have a sort of we made a 1 minute countdown file, which we could then play, which covered the period that it takes. The process of actually going live involves, you know, it's a little bit unpredictable. Sometimes it's 15 seconds, sometimes it's 40 seconds to do it. So we wanted to have something up on the screen so people would see it, and it would give us time to get everything ready to go. So that was a cleaner start to it. Sorry, I'm probably being a little bit not making a lot of sense there, but basically the gist of it is that the transitions from the feature itself to the live session, it's not instantaneous. You need to be aware that it can be a little bit unpredictable. Similarly, at the end of the session, you want to have a clean finish, and so you need, our policy was to get 20 people together 20 minutes before the Q&A was due to go live, and Holly would then, or the presenter would then talk them through, make sure everybody looked all right and sounded all right, and they knew what was going on. And then they all had to turn their camera feeds off, video feeds off at the beginning, so that they're little, you wouldn't get thumbnails of them coming up on. So we would have our countdown, but we didn't really want what we're seeing now, which is sort of images done, as thumbnails.
So can I just mention, sorry,
go on.
So the Q&As are quite stressful because they're live, and so we managed them a lot, didn't we, Alastair? So we had a whole kind of a list for every Q&A that we did had what we called a director, a producer, and usually a chair in there. And Richard, did we always have you in there as well?
No, not always.
Always, no.
Not always, but quite often. And so it was the director's job to do the screen share of the 1 minute and get the slide up at the end, and to make sure that everybody in the Zoom knew what was happening, felt comfortable, so that they all came across very well. And then it was Alastair's stressful job of making sure that that all worked technically. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Alastair, that the way that you use the Zoom into Eventive was actually really easy. So Eventive, if you've ever done any simulcasting, it's got a button which says share, and then you've got options. So Zoom's got some options built into it, like you can easily just kind of live cast to Facebook. And there's a widget that you can put in that means that you can just click Eventive, and it basically pushes it onto Eventive without you having to be a technical whiz. Obviously, Alastair is a technical whiz, but that bit just facilitates. Is that correct, Alastair?
Yeah, in fact, you have an option to do a manual setup. So you don't, if you haven't got the widget, you can actually manually do it live as well. So you just need to click or cut and paste, copy and paste the right bit into the right box. It's very straightforward, basically. I'm sure many of you have got experience of this already, so you know how it goes. It's the same standard procedure. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Alastair. Can you stop your screen share?
Yes. Do you want to talk about the recording element of the Q&As, or?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, please.
So I was just going to have a quick chat about that. Basically, we were recording every time. So we would record our Zoom session in Zoom, and then we would do a little bit of editing, because generally you have to tidy it up a little bit, and put a slide on the front, and then we'd upload it to our YouTube channel. And so generally speaking, I'd give myself 24 hours or sometimes 36 hours to do that process, because obviously you need to download it, go through it, check all the captioning is right, and tidy it up a little bit, and then upload it to YouTube. So that is, again, pretty straightforward. Again, I'm sure you've all got experience of that yourselves. I think that's it.
Yeah. And it was really great that Eventive naturally then stick effectively that Q&A to the film. So with Amplify, our films were all, I don't think we had any that were only live for 1 day. So they were all either 3 days, some of them were 2 weeks. They were available to the audience for different amounts of time. and we tried to drop the Q&As in. So we imagined that it would take a little while for a film to build a bit of buzz, for people to recommend it to their friends, and that we wanted the Q&A a little way down its life on Amplify. By and large, some of them were the day that the film launched on Amplify. And then we wanted that Q&A to be available thereafter to everybody that watched the film. And I loved the fact that that wasn't an additional piece of work on Eventive, that it was just integrated into it. So yeah, I thought that was a way in which it worked very well. Richard, I wanted to ask you next to talk a little bit about, so you, Richard, managed all the customer interaction. So can you talk a bit about what the kind of, I suppose what would be really useful is, what were the most asked questions and issues, and how did you resolve them?
Sure. I think the biggest, certainly at the start, the biggest issue was people playing the content on various devices. You know, if you want to watch it in your web browser, it's really easy. You click play and it plays. If you want to watch it on an Apple TV, apparently there's an app. I don't think we actually know anyone who has an Apple TV. I certainly don't remember talking to anyone. So I don't know how well that works, but no one complained that their Apple TV wasn't working. So hopefully that's fine. If you want to use it on an Amazon Fire Stick, officially you can't. And I found a way to make it work, jumping through some hoops, and that, because you have to jump through hoops, was a very mixed success. I got it working pretty damn well. Other people couldn't get it to go at all. And that's kind of, I mean, I've talked about 3 specifics there, but extrapolate that to every kind of device. Sometimes it works because Eventive have put the effort in to make an app, and so it works pretty seamlessly. Other times you just can't get it to work at all. And so yeah, we had quite a few people saying, you know, I can't get it to work on this device or that device. And so yeah, sometimes we were able to resolve that by giving them specific instructions. Other times we did just have to say, I'm terribly sorry, it's not going to work. Some people were okay with that. They went and watched it on their iPad instead of their telly. Other people were cross.
I'm just going to butt in there to say we did put out quite a detailed how to attach an HDMI cable from your computer to your television, with pictures of what an HDMI cable looked like. And one of the reasons I think that we had these issues is because our audiences, and this is grossly unfair and an ageist comment, but lots of them were older and have an expectation to watch content on their television screens, rather than, I know that lots of younger people, but not necessarily all younger people, are very used to watching things on laptops, on iPads, on phones. Then there's not an expectation, certainly amongst my daughter's generation, for example, that you would watch things on television. So sorry for interrupting you there.
It's okay. Yeah, I think there's certainly a degree of expectation in it. I think some people expect Netflix, and you know, Netflix are the #1 streamer, and so they can afford to develop a bespoke app for every platform going, and everyone wants them to. And it's the same with someone like Disney Plus or Amazon. You know, they have bespoke apps left, right, and centre for everything you can imagine. Eventive obviously don't, and so it's really hit or miss. You know, some people got on with it. I think the majority of our users, you know, when we looked at the feedback surveys and everything, it was actually quite a small number who really struggled and complained about it.
And what were the other biggest issues that people faced that they got in touch with you about?
So we had some issues with quality, with streaming quality, which was generally solved by, you can adjust the quality of the stream. So by default, it's playing at the best it can manage. If your connection struggles with that, there is a way to set it to a lower quality, which then obviously is more consistent because it's not trying to up it all the time. Um,
And I think,
one,
so just again briefly on the quality, I think that most people don't know that Netflix has a very magical algorithm which increases and decreases the width, which is why you can nearly always watch a Netflix film even if you've only got 3G, and why you can't always watch an Amazon Prime film or an Amplify film. So.
sure. Yeah, and Eventive and does have, you know, very low quality options, but obviously it's always trying to give you the best, I think, and so it's always trying to push itself. We also had, and this sort of comes into ticketing a bit, and passes, because we had some free films. Some people accidentally used their pass to buy a free film, thereby effectively paying for a free film. Which I sort of only more recently realised there were some ways we could have avoided that ever happening. But it doesn't happen by default, which you think it should. You feel like Eventive should have it sort of in the system already. But there are ways around that. There are ways to stop that happening. Those are sort of the main queries I remember getting.
Brilliant, thank you, Richard. I just wanted to pop very quickly back. I meant to say when Alastair was talking about uploading the films, and if you've got the wrong film there for some reason, you obviously have to get rid of it and ask them to resubmit it. Just to say that we had a team of volunteers to watch films and check them to make sure that it was the right film, that it didn't trip up anywhere repeatedly, so there wasn't an issue with the film itself rather than the platform, to make sure that it had English subtitles on it if it was a foreign language film. So just to check that the film was on Eventive, it was robust, it was watchable, and it was all fine. So, and that was a really important, and the reason that we did that was because before Amplify, Alastair and Chris Baker, who's also with FilmBath, had run, and Patrick, who's here, had run Cheltenham Film Festival on Shift 72. And so we benefited a lot from everything that they'd learned from doing that. So yes, I just wanted to add those things in. So the next thing that I thought would be useful to talk about would be, so financial reporting. The financial reporting on Eventive, I think, certainly for me, was the worst aspect of Eventive, and all the more frustrating because it seems to me that there are all kinds of ways that it could easily not be bad. So we, for Amplify, Owen at Cambridge Film Festival, I think, had to spend a day trying to unpick where different amounts of money had come from and gone to. So what Eventive had charged for what Stripe, which is the way of processing credit and debit card payments, how much had gone to them, and the unlock fees. So we haven't spoken about unlock fees, but every time somebody watches a film, either a short or a feature on Eventive, they or you get charged a 75 pence unlock fee, which I think actually might have gone up to 85 pence. So you can choose on Eventive whether you're going to pay that or whether you're going to charge it to them on top of their ticket price. But when it comes to reconciling, it's very, very confusing which bit of money has come from where and gone to where. So if you want something as simple, and it looks on Eventive as though you can do this, that what you want is a report that you can send to the distributors. So what you want to say is, this many people watched your film and they paid this much money for it. Therefore, I owe you 35% of this much money. And it is almost impenetrable. Have you got anything else to say about it, Richard, since I've made you unknot quite a lot?
I think two things. One is we made it a bit harder for ourselves because we also sold tickets to the FilmBath physical screenings through Eventive. And so we had an Amplify event bucket for the virtual screenings and a FilmBath event bucket for the physical screenings. But when it comes to financial reporting, Eventive really likes to lump it all together. They don't like it to stay in event buckets when it comes to money. So picking apart which money was for FilmBath and which money was for AMPLIFY was a challenge. The other thing is about those unlock fees. And the real reason they get so confusing is because of when Eventive chooses to take them. And that varies depending on whether the content has been uploaded or not. And so therefore, you'll be selling tickets or passes where the unlock fee is taken and where it isn't at the same time. And then at some point it'll switch, and suddenly they'll go from not taking it to taking it. And sometimes, because they haven't taken it, they take it retrospectively. And so it could be much simpler. And there is a reason for it. It's to do with whether Eventive knows it's virtual screening or not. But the way it does that is like I say, it makes sense. Once you look into it and understand why it does it, it sort of makes sense. But from a financial reporting point of view, it's a pain.
Yeah, it was really knotty and frustrating, and it felt as though there was no need for it to be as complex. You know, what you want is a sort of simple spreadsheet of this was the income for the film, this was what it cost you to put the film on, therefore this is your income for the film, you know, and then you can just cut and paste that out, work out what you owe for all the screening fees.
And also, actually, sometimes they never take the unlock fee because someone doesn't watch the film. But sometimes they take the unlock fee, then the film doesn't get watched, so they return the unlock fee. And just every permutation of when they take it, when they don't take it, when they refund it, when they don't refund it, on a ticket by ticket basis. And that's why it got so knotty to unpick.
Yeah, and a film by film basis, it was just, yeah, bit of a mare. And I wanted to mention here, because it's relevant to the unlock fees and ticket prices, we had several free shorts programs, and had we uploaded those shorts individually, then they would have had an unlock fee for each of the shorts for us. So it would have, so say we had 10 shorts, it would have cost us £7.50 for somebody to watch those shorts. So what happened was Alastair made those shorts, he stuck them all together and then uploaded them as one film, so that an unlock fee, you could have 25 shorts and one unlock fee of 75 pence, which made it affordable for us to have those as free programs. Another thing to note is when you pay for Eventive, so it costs, I think it was either £720 and 30 pence or £730 and 20, and it was one way around. That's what it costs to kind of use the platform, and that includes, I think it's probably changing all the time, but it includes the uploads of a certain number of features and shorts. But if a short is 3 minutes, it's always free to upload, or it was when we were using it. So it's very useful to remember if you're doing call outs for shorts, that's free to upload. But obviously if you upload the shorts at 3 minutes a pop, it's going to cost 75 pence for somebody to watch that, which either you've got to pay or they've got to pay. So you kind of have to balance that out. In the end, I would say Eventive win. I was particularly surprised at how much it cost for our physical film festival just to sell tickets through Eventive. And it cost us more to sell tickets on Eventive than it cost us to sell tickets at a physical box office in Bath, with people serving people, answering phones and answering emails. So that's worth noting. If you're thinking about using it for physical, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend it for virtual. So we're about to come on to our questions, and I can see, thank you very much, that you've asked lots of questions down here. Just before you do, I thought of something that I was going to ask. Oh, I was just going to mention that Alastair has experience of both Shift 72 and Eventive. So that's a fantastically useful resource that we've got in the room with us. So the first question that we're going to take is from Nadia, who's asking about, so she's saying that everybody is pressurizing her to do live streaming only rather than VOD, and why we opted. So we live streamed the Q&As and the industry events, which were mostly through Facebook Live. And all our films were VOD. And the reason that we decided to do that was the expectations that we had about our audiences and about getting the word out. So we had hoped that Amplify would get a lot of national, well, not a lot, but some national press, that at least Screen would write about it and say, you know, 4 film festivals have come together in adversity, despite all the cinemas shutting down, and put on this fantastic online film festival, and that word would build about Amplify as it went on. And obviously it did. And we didn't want all the, or not all, but lots of films to have gone by the time people heard about it. And so we took that decision to have them on there as VOD. Alastair, Richard, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add about that.
You probably could use Eventive to live stream a film. Yeah, you'd upload it as VOD, but the window would only be the length of the film. So it could be done. We didn't want to, so we didn't. You know, that was what was negotiated.
And there's a really good question from Naomi for you, Richard.
Holly?
Yes.
Sorry, I was just going to say, because of the way that we are putting our films on, nearly all of our films are live streamed, because obviously someone needs to play the piano. So it's all live. So yes, would be my answer, hopefully, if it all goes well in March. Most of our stuff is exactly that. It's all live streamed. Yeah.
And have you, Jackie, have you done any of that yet?
Yeah, we did one in January, a kind of a little bit of a trial. And that was slightly different because we did it with the Netherlands. And so we literally just streamed out to their YouTube channel. Whereas when we do it, we're going to be doing it a bit more like your Q&A. We'll be going through using OB and then Zoom. But yeah, I mean, we've had a few practices. It seems to be okay.
Can I just break in there and just ask you a quick question about that? So you basically just go direct into a computer and use software on that to deal with the, you know, the mixing and all that.
Yeah, I mean, not me, because
Right.
I am not technical, but you and our technical manager, he has OB, and so he will live edit. And so especially with some of our events where we've got we've got people chatting, and then we're going over to clips which are then going to be played live with Janet, and then back in. It's going to be quite fiddly, I think. It isn't something I'd want to be taking on, but
I just put in a very strong recommendation because we've just recently invested in a very handy piece of kit, which is there's been a bit of a revolution in standalone switchers and mixers in the last year or so, and now they're suddenly becoming much more affordable. So we bought one, and we have used it a little bit, but we haven't used it very much. And but it's going to be very, very useful because it gives you, it's like a physical switcher. You've got 4 buttons, you know, it just makes life loads easier. Plus 1 or 2 of them have a direct Ethernet output, so you can literally live stream straight from that if you want to. You don't have to go into a laptop. It's just a little heads up on that. I'm sure your technical guy probably knows about that anyway. But
well, amazing. But you wouldn't mind just writing down what it is, Alastair, in the chat, would you? That sounds really good.
Yeah, sure.
Just like to say, it's probably a technical gal. Richard, how did the customer inquiries you received fit in with the customer help of Eventive? Which is a really good question. So sure. I'm just going to pop in and say that Eventive help is pretty good, both for customer service for the festival and for audience. And one of the things that I really appreciated was it recognizes if your festival is live at the moment, and it immediately says, is your issue something that's going on right now? So it knows that it needs to ask. And one of the reasons that we chose Eventive over Shift 72 was that Shift 72 is based in New Zealand, as I'm sure you know, and Eventive is based on the West Coast, which means, I think it's the West Coast, but it means that the window when we're both awake is greater for Eventive. Go, Richard.
Yeah, I mean, that is one factor, is you won't get a reply in the morning from Eventive help. So yeah, I mean, like Holly said, the help is very useful both to us behind the scenes and to the audience. They're not always perfect. Sometimes you ask them for something, and if they don't offer it, they'll just sort of say, we don't do that. In terms of the audience using it, Eventive were the best for answering really technical issues, I think. You know, things about stream quality and access, we tried to refer to them. Anything to do with buying tickets, refunds, etc., they transferred on to us. So if someone contacted them asking about a refund, etc., they would then seemingly at random pick someone from our admin list and forward it on to them. I think that was the biggest downside in some respects, was that you can't sort of say, this is the person to contact, pass it on to them. They will sort of do it themselves.
And because we were 4 film festivals, we had a lot of admins in there, because we had people from every festival, even though they weren't necessarily fielding those kinds of things, which wouldn't be normal. It would normally, you'd have, you know, 1 or 2, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So Naomi is asking, how did you handle the transaction fee? So if you mean the fee that is blobbed on top of the ticket price, we absorbed the Stripe fees and we put the Eventive fee on top of the ticket, and quite quickly we added that as a note to each film, so that people would know that that was going to happen before buying it. And it meant that buying a pass was an absolute bargain. So our passes were fantastically good value. And Ido, who set up Eventive with his son, said to us right at the beginning, go, you know, really sell your passes. So your passes are what's going to make it work for you, because there'll be a bargain. People won't probably watch all the films. He didn't say, and then the reporting will mess that up for you. Yeah, it was true for us that there were some people that bought. So I think the queen of ticket buying bought at least 3 passes, so watched over 30 films on Eventive. So yeah, Naomi, that's how we did it. Did we feed back to Eventive team about the trickiness of financial reporting? Hell, what do you think? Yes, of course we did. On Eventive, in the back end, there is a page of all the things that people that use Eventive, not audience, but festivals, ask for. And you can vote things up that list. And the theory is that the more votes something get, the sooner they work on that, which I'm sure is true. But there are things in there, such as getting an app for the Amazon Fire Stick, that they are trying to do. They said that they were hoping to do it by November last year, have that app ready for Amazon Stick, but it wasn't. And I imagine it's a nightmare thing to try and do. But there's lots of differently phrased requests for financial reporting back there. And they have, to be fair, there are lots and lots of different options for how you spit out financial reports. It's just that for us, it was quite a knot that we had to undo. Is there a way of uploading without DRM to get around the charges? Alastair.
The simple answer is I don't know, but I don't think so. I could We didn't really look into that very much because, as you probably can imagine, you know, there isn't really time at the time, and then afterwards somehow you just want to have a breather. So it's not something we investigated. So I can't really answer that, I'm afraid.
That's okay. Thank you very much. John, the Q&As were on Eventive. Yes, once the Q&As had live streamed, they were then automatically basically bolted on to that film. So when you came to the film, you would be offered the live stream. You could just click it after you'd finished watching the film and watch it. Daisy, free ticket, absolutely. You can offer a free ticket. And we did talk quite a bit about pay what you can ticketing. In the end, we didn't do that. What we went for was a really broad bucket of concessionary tickets. So our concessions included all the usual suspects and single parents, refugees. We tried to phrase it in such a way, and under 30s. And our concessionary tickets were half the price of the full price tickets. And yes, we tried to phrase it in such a way that we hoped anybody that felt that they needed or wanted a concession would simply buy the concessions, because obviously we're not checking them as they come in. They haven't got to prove anything. But of course, it's remarkable how honest people are. So people would email us and say, I'm 29, can I really get half price? And we'd say, yes, of course you can. Right, this is from Nadia, Eventive unrelated. How was your experience with getting permissions from filmmakers to stream the films online? So that's a really complicated question. The features that we screened came from sales agents and distributors, as they would do at our festivals, but they weren't quite what we would all normally screen at our festivals, because you know, films like Nomadland, which is a Disney Fox film, they're never going to give that to a regional film festival to screen online, because they want it to have a Disney release online. They don't want it to have an online. So we could put Nomadland on at our physical FilmBath festival, but we couldn't put it on our AMPLIFY Film Festival. Tony Jones, who set up Cambridge Film Festival and Pitch Houses, he was the kind of dynamo that was getting permissions for feature films to screen on AMPLIFY. And I mean, you'll all know this, that it is a really varied picture when it comes to getting permissions. So what distributors will agree to in terms of the numbers of people they're happy to watch their film on a digital platform, how long it can be available for, and what they charge for it. So we are used to paying 50% of box office for previews and 35% for non-previews, and or a minimum guarantee or a fee. And as I'm sure lots of you will have experience of, there are lots of European sales agents that you approach who ask for a huge amount of money, which I always think is maybe because there are European film festivals that get really decent funding and can afford €1,000 for a film. But we found with all of them that we could negotiate down. And there were some that wanted quite a tight cap on the numbers of eyeballs that could watch their films. So that's really varied. As far as shorts go, the shorts that we screened had all been submitted to the film festivals who screened them. So we had a FilmBath shorts program. I think we had 2 Brighton shorts programs and 1 or 2 Cornwall shorts programs. And so we'd all done a call out for those films on the assumption that they were going to be screened at our festivals. So that's effectively those filmmakers giving us permission to screen those films. So it's a complicated question. Jackie, when you add an intro as a VOD, is that? No, it's not an extra 75 pence to watch the introduction. The introduction happens as part of the film, as does the slide, as do the Q&As. So if you put together a playlist of your introduction, your slide, your introduction, your feature film, and your Q&A. It's one unlock fee for that. Did we use any captioning for events? What we did was we employed a fantastic British Sign Language interpreter that we had on Zoom in one of the boxes. So she would always be, I think, bottom right in the boxes, signing for them rather than captioning, because captions are just too funny. If you've got them coming up automatically, you know what they're like, and you end up kind of distracting the audience with those captions. Because when they go wrong, they're quite amusing.
That was just for the Q&As, we didn't do that for any features, obviously.
No, we talked about doing them for the features because part of our BFI funding was about accessibility. And the reality was we did Amplify so fast in such a tight time frame, there just wasn't the time to employ somebody to do audio description for any of the films. Lots of the films were international films in foreign languages, which meant that they had subtitles for the speech, but they didn't have they didn't have description.
Also, it's just important to say that I don't know how you would do that in real time for live streaming on Eventive. It's not something we've investigated, and that might be problematic. And there's another question about multiple SRTs. We actually didn't use SRTs as an add-on to any of our uploads. So all the subtitle films that we had to show were pre-subtitled before we uploaded them. But there is the possibility of assigning an SRT file for a feature. I don't know, I'm afraid, whether you can have more than one, but I somewhat doubt it, but it's something that we could find out.
Yeah. Did somebody say something? So there's another question. So John has asked, our festival has 40 programs made up from about 320 shorts. So would the best option be to load each program as a block of films? Yes. Can you still have a page entry for each individual film? Not on Eventive, it wouldn't work. It would all, what you'd have to do is create an image, which is a collage of all of those films. You wouldn't be able to have individual entries. And I'm not convinced that Eventive is the right place for a short film festival. I mean, not for a film festival of shorts rather than a non-long film festival. The person that I would talk to about that is Rich at Encounters. So he would be your best port of call for a shorts film festival. For Richard, how easy is it to integrate images and text on the Eventive homepage?
Not particularly. There's a space for a big banner image, and there's optionally you can put your logo top left. And that's about it for images, I think. It's not really sort of built to have. I mean, that's why we created the Squarespace website, so as that we'd have more control over pictures and size of pictures and type of pictures, etc.
So we've got a question about that, Richard, which is about how the AMPLIFY website dovetailed with the Squarespace website. And Joe, that again is a complicated question. Because we were 4 film festivals doing this, we each had, to a greater and a lesser extent, all of the films on all of our websites linking to Eventive. And then we had all of the films on amplifyfilm.co.uk, which was, or .org.uk, which was our Squarespace website. And we had all of our films on Eventive. And actually, I don't know that we needed. So I really wanted the Squarespace website because I care too much probably about how things look, and I didn't particularly love how Eventive looked. But I don't know how beneficial it was. Have you got any thoughts, Richard?
We ended up duplicating a lot of work because of that. You know, we wrote the blurb and assembled all the facts, the running time, etc. But then they had to be uploaded and formatted onto Eventive and onto our own website, the AMPLIFY website, and onto the FilmBath website, and then other festivals were putting them on their websites. So it was a lot of probably needless repetition, whereas we could have just linked through sooner, maybe, to the Eventive site.
Yeah, yeah. I think I would probably do it again with another website, but that's because I like building websites and I care a lot about how things look. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody else. John, I'm going to come back to your question about ticket prices, because Richard, I'm going to ask you if you could go and find what our prices were, because I can't remember. Then we can talk about that. Meanwhile, David, discount codes are easy peasy. You can create them, you can tell Eventive exactly how you want them to work, how many of them you want to offer. So you could, you know, create an early bird discount code, which you send, in fact, I think we might have done, which you send out to everybody and say, you know, if you use this code before this date for your pass, then you can get 10%, 20%, whatever you like off your pass. So you can kind of try and do those pre-sales, which don't happen as much online as they do with in-person events. And they can make you feel a little bit better about the fact that you're going to be selling tickets. We also, so we employed Patrick, who has now lots of experience of doing this, to reach out to lots of you, I hope, to be virtual ticket partners. So basically asking cinemas, film festivals, whether they would be interested in being virtual ticket partners, which would mean that they get a special code, which gives their audience a discount, and also means we can see how many tickets they've sold and give them a proportion of the ticket sales. So in other words, they would put out a code, their audiences would buy tickets with that code and get money off for them, the audience. And then we could send them a report afterwards to say, your organisation sold £100 worth of tickets. We're giving you 20%, so please invoice us for £20, which I think is a brilliant plan, but I don't know whether it's worth all the work. Patrick is your person to ask about. Louise, I hope that's answered your questions about the integration of the Eventive website. So with our website, FilmBath website, using Eventive with that was brilliant and easy. Our website works by having a page for every film, which has the trailer, the blurb, all those bits of information like director certificate and so on. And then it's got a buy tickets now button. So the buy tickets now button would bing you through actually to a landing page on Eventive where you could either buy your pass or you could buy, is that true, Richard? Or did we link just straight to the film? We linked straight to the film.
And then we put a bit in the text saying, or you can buy a pass for great value, click here.
Right, so we linked straight to that film, which is obviously less annoying for a customer than being binged off to a page which doesn't have the film that they want to buy a ticket for, but does complicate things with your passes slightly, because what we couldn't make it that obvious to everybody that you could buy a pass, which was an absolute bargain, especially if you were a concession, that would allow you to watch 10.
Yeah, this is one of another problem with Eventive, which, you know, we were talking about the request feature thing. Lots of people have asked them to fix this and they haven't yet. And it's that thing we were talking about near the start about there sort of being two websites. And basically one of them is where you buy passes and the other one is where you watch films or buy standalone tickets. And that's, you know, you can't buy a pass from the place you can buy standalone tickets. And so that's part of what makes it confusing about trying to sell stuff, unfortunately.
Did you look up the ticket prices? Can you talk
about
that?
So our ticket prices were £8 and £5 for concessions, plus the fee. And our passes were £50 for 10 or concessions £30 for 10.
Oh, so not half, they weren't half price.
No,
they were
not quite.
A bargain. John has asked about, did filmmakers get a free pass, as in shorts, filmmakers of shorts? And the answer is no, all the shorts were free and they could watch all the shorts as could everybody else. But no, we did not give them passes to the rest of the festival. Chris
One
Baker.
thing we did do, I'm sorry, is we had an American short filmmaker, and so we gave her a special pass to override the geolock, because all our films were geolocked to the UK. So you can give someone a pass that overrides that, and so we did just for her, so she could watch her short.
And it's worth mentioning to anybody that's kind of starting out on a virtual film festival path. My ambition for Amplify when we started it was that it had the potential to be international, which of course very swiftly was thwarted because nobody was going to give us permissions to screen the films that we wanted to screen internationally. Our shorts programs we might have been able to do internationally, but not the features that we had on there. So Chris Baker, who's also FilmBath, he founded FilmBath, has asked, with Shift 72, we find we can achieve some things with workarounds while not being able to achieve these in a similar or direct way. Yes, Chris, we had to do lots of workarounds, but I believe maybe not as many as you have to do in Shift 72. Mostly, I would say, because Eventive was set up by people that run film festivals plus techies, and that the two marry together better. I imagine Shift 72 is getting there or will get there, but because it was set up by techies rather than film festival organisers, I think it's slightly less. It's not quite as good at doing what we wanted to do. Alastair, would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, the problem with any changes is it's virtually impossible to get something done quickly. I mean, you know, you'd be very, very lucky to pick up a phone or get online and say, look, we really need to get this sorted out urgently. They just can't do it. So you do have to, you know, they can sometimes offer you workaround ideas. That's why that comes up, really, is because you desperately want something to work. I mean, you know, one of the hiccups we had with Shift 72 at Cheltenham was that the fact that you couldn't easily add another file to a film, so you were stuck with the film and no intro or nothing else, and there was a workaround for that, but it was quite complicated. You had to classify it as an ad, so you're able to show ads before film. So what you wanted, you had to then tag the file that you wanted to show with an ad tag, which is you can get software to do that, but it's a clunky workaround, not very good as a workaround. So that's an example. But I think we were lucky. I mean, it's different. My experience was different from yours. In the technical field and in the upload field, there weren't many problems rising from things that we couldn't do with Eventive.
Yeah, one of the advantages of Eventive, is that everything is always editable. Even once the film is live or once you've sold tickets, you can change ticket prices if you want, at the risk of annoying people, obviously, but it can be done. And so, you know, even if it's something as little as you spot a typo, you can fix it, or you can completely change the program. You know, we sometimes we'd have an intro that wasn't the best intro because it wasn't bespoke, but it would do, and then the bespoke intro came in a day later, and we could switch them easily. Took 2 minutes.
Yeah, and there was lots of feedback from the audiences that they did feel that it felt like a film festival, which I think was partly due to those introductions. So we had introductions from various different people from the different festivals to make it more human and hopefully kind of more welcoming when you came to those films. David's asked a question about looking at the analytics of the audience. I'm going to actually answer a slightly different question, which is the way that we marketed Amplify. So obviously we were 4 organisations. We set up an Amplify Twitter feed and a Facebook page, but the most useful, or the most useful, well, a couple of things. The thing that drove most ticket sales, as is true for all of our festivals, was mail outs to our audience. So by miles, that was the most significant thing that sold tickets, and it was really obvious when somebody had sent out a MailChimp from one of their organizations. well, not really, but you could, as soon as you analyze any of it, one of the very annoying things about Eventive for me was that it's not possible to look in there and see where traffic's coming from. So you can't, you can neither see where people, you can see officially where people come from, but it's wrong because it's dependent on your IP address. And so we knew, we'd look and say, hold on, that's Richard, and Richard's in the West Country, and it's saying that he's in Scotland or, you know, South America. So we knew that the geographical data that it was giving us was not true, which for somebody as competitive as me was really frustrating because I wanted to go, look, they're all coming from Bath. Which, you know, so that it wouldn't tell us that, but it also wouldn't tell us this many people have come from this website or Twitter or Facebook. So the usual kind of SEO information that you'd have on Google Analytics for your website, you don't have access to that on Eventive. And that would be a lovely feature to know, because then you can boost that aspect of it. Patrick, I am pretty sure it's not possible. You could put tickets. So Patrick has asked whether you could put tickets and passes on a third-party platform, which would unlock the film on Eventive. What you could do, Patrick, is work around that by selling people a code, and that code would then unlock films. So if you wanted to do that, you could do that. Louise, okay, Louise is giving information. By Daisy, we noticed that Eventive offers mail. So Joe, the MailChimp integration, we did use that. So as well as, oh, and the, sorry, just popping back to marketing, the most successful aspect after our mail outs to our audience members was setting up a Facebook group. So Amplify Film Club. Yeah, Amplify Film Club on Facebook. And the reason that was successful was because there was Amanda in Cornwall Film Festival who basically ran it, and she's very good and very chatty. So I don't know about you, but there are lots of us that we run film festivals because what we really like is sitting in a dark room, not talking to somebody. And Amanda is not that at all. So she really was very good at drawing people in and chatting and doing quizzes and kind of polls and stuff. So there were, I think, 750 people in that Facebook film group all talking about the films that they were watching on Amplify. So that was really good. And Joe, yes, we did use the MailChimp integration on Eventive to send Amplify audiences bespoke emails, which also kind of answers, David, your question about did we upsell films to people that had watched films like that. I'm always really wary of that, because I think if you know you like documentaries, you know you like documentaries. You don't need to be told you like documentaries. And so I much prefer the approach of saying, oh, you watched a documentary about, you know, you watched The Mole Agent about somebody going into old people's homes. You might really like a film about what happened in Wuhan when the virus first happened, because they might not be looking at that one. So, but that's just my approach. Naomi, is it easy to give comp tickets to individual titles? Absolutely. John, what do you mean by geo-blocked to the UK? That means that nobody with an IP address located outside the UK can watch a film. Interestingly, it didn't include the Isle of Wight to start with until we said you need to include the Isle of Wight. John, talk to Rich. Yes, do talk to Rich. Chris, Shift 72 is editable. Q&As were stressful. Did they run smoothly? Karen, they ran smoothly, partly thanks to the genius that is Christina at Cambridge, and Alastair, and Richard, and absolute kind of micromanaging of how we were going to do it, practice running it, and having practiced before. So, and it still didn't stop them being stressful.
Just to add in there, that's part of the reason why we posted them on YouTube afterwards, is because obviously the one that's appended to the file, the film in Eventive, is non-editable. It's just a straight recording of what happened. And sometimes, you know, there are hiccups or glitches and things that you'd rather not have. So it was quite, I think it was a good thing to have them on YouTube as well, and we used to direct people to those for preference, really, if they wanted to watch the Q&A.
I think from an audience side, they probably all looked with, I mean, out of, I don't know how many Q&As we did in the end, but there were maybe 1 or 2 hiccups across all of them. I think to the audience, they all, you know, I watched most of them as an audience member rather than as a participant in any way, and they looked smooth and professional. All the sort of, it was like a duck, wasn't it? All the stressful paddling was underwater.
Yeah, I've got a whole list of, this is how we're going to do Zoom Q&As. So this is the last question that we're going to take, and then we can all go and have a break from Zoom. So Andrea's asked about the take up from audiences compared with live film festivals. And it's a complicated question because obviously you don't know how many people are watching any given film. In the end, I thought we were going to have more people, to be honest, than we did, because we were 4 film festivals. All, you know, if you combine all of our audiences together, it is a lot of people. It's tens of thousands of people. And they're obviously the people that want to watch the kinds of films that we screen at film festivals, which were the kinds of films that we put onto Amplify. But we were doing it in the midst, as we all are, of a lot of online content and a lot of noise, and we were an unheard of organisation, effectively. So the take up was really good, and the way that we reported it in the end was we multiplied each eyeball by 1.9. So that was the figure that Owen in Cambridge came to as a kind of industry average. So all of those amazing figures that Sundance and everybody have got for their virtual film festival they have multiplied their actual eyeballs to assume that, well, some of them will have only been watched by 1 person, some of them will have been watched by 4 people, and there's probably an average somewhere in there. So the average that we used was 1.9. So I'd like to say a massive thank you to all of you for coming, and thank you very much to Richard and Alastair for your time and your generosity in sharing anything. You know where we are if you've got any specific questions, and if you've got any specific questions about the differences between Eventive and Shift 72, Alastair might, if he's feeling energetic, answer them for you in the future. So thank you very much.